Hello and welcome to the program. I am DEJI360. The 2023 general elections are gradually drawing closer, and as expected, political parties and politicians across the country now are gearing up for the elections. For now, the politics is more focused at the party levels as aspirants jostle to pick the tickets of their various political parties. Now, election campaigns all over the world are not cheap, and it's not different in Nigeria. Political campaigns involves lots of money, and the truth is that the bulk of these monies often end up in the hands of the voter. Because of the money involved, many voters, especially here in Nigeria, see electioneering period as a time to make money. And to be candid, some voters do make plenty of money at times like this. However, experience has shown that the predominance of money in politics have impacted negatively on electoral credibility and the kind of leaders who emerge from the process. So, there's been increasing evidence that corruption and unregulated donations have undue influence on politics and undermine the integrity of elections. Now, to regulate this situation, the country's newly amended Electoral Act prescribes that a presidential candidate can spend no more than 5 billion naira for his campaigns. Governorship candidates are allowed to spend up to 1 billion naira. Senate and House of Representatives candidate can spend up to a maximum of 150 million naira and 70 million naira respectively. For state legislators now and chairmanship candidates, it is 30 million naira, and for councillorship, 5 million naira. So the bottom line from these figures I have actually quoted above is that you need to be a millionaire to run for political office in this country. And if you're a billionaire, the better. And don't forget that in reality, those figures I actually quoted are a far cry from what politicians actually spend during elections. So beyond the usual logistic expenses, politicians spend a lot in lobbying for votes and influencing the decisions of voters. Sometimes one won't be wrong to say they spend an alarming amount of money to buy votes, and that's just the way it is. But how exactly do we draw the line in ensuring that this culture of unnecessary campaign spending stops? Well, Nigeria is at a time when the country needs to get everything right politically if the economic situation of the country is anything to go by. Joining me on the program right now to discuss more on this issue of election campaign financing and ethics is legal practitioner Libro Soshoma, who joins us from Lagos. We also have a presidential aspirant of the ADC, that's the African Democratic Congress, Israel Davison, who joins us from the United Kingdom. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program. Let me start with you, the presidential aspirant, Mr. Davidson. You must be a millionaire or at least a billionaire now to want to run for the presidency because, of course, as the Electoral Act has stated, I mean, you're free to spend as much as 5 billion naira running for the office of the president of this country.
Thank you, Deji, for having me. Well, let me confess immediately, I'm not a billionaire. Neither am I a millionaire.
Then that is serious. That is really serious.
I'm a Pan-Africanist and an individual who, has got the well-being of our country in mind. And to be frank with you, I don't believe that elections should be shaped by the candidates' size of their pockets. Normally in advanced countries, what happens then is that individuals who wish to run on their credibility, run on the various programs they wish to execute while in office, and then get their supporters to come together across the country to donate. But in Nigeria, it's slightly different. But I'm hoping that 2023 will be different, considering the experience of Nigerians for the past 8 years. I think they have a choice.
Now, how
They
do
have
you
a
how do you
choice.
expect 2023 to be different? For instance, you expect 2023 to be different in the sense that voters would not ask you for money, because that's it's the truth. It's something that happens here all the time, because the politics has been monetized over the years, and it's not something that can change overnight. You don't expect this. Personally, I do not expect things will change in 2023. So when you talk about things changing, especially when it comes to election financing now, and you have this electoral act prescribing this huge amount of money, and then the mentality of the average voter is that, look, this is a period for him or her to make money. How do you think things will change in 2023 when you consider all of this?
I think I'd like to give the Nigerians, enough credit that they're intelligent enough to make a decision as to when to draw the line. I think the reason why I'm saying that the past 8 years, has become, an educating force to Nigerians, is that yes, in the previous years, perhaps they had the opportunity to focus on money alone. And I think for the first time, perhaps, the Buhari's administration has been able to communicate to every average Nigerian that who you elect into the office determines your life, determines your growth, determines your progress, determines your security. So it is my hope that in 2023, that the Nigerians are going to look for more than just handouts. They're going to be looking for people who can deliver and make them feel safe.
Now, that will be quite interesting. Let me go to you, Liberals. I mean, you monitor elections in this country. Can you see any sign at all that it will be different this time in 2023, that money will play less of a role in our politics in 2023?
DG, to answer your question directly, I will see it becoming worse in 2023 because there's so much poverty now, and so people are going to, latch onto the opportunity presented by politics and politicians to make money, given the fact that there is hunger in the land. And then also, I think all of this is happening because our election laws, our electoral laws, are largely obeyed in breach. The law prescribes the money that should be spent. It caps what should be spent.
But we know they spend more than that.
We know. You and I know that they spend more than that. And the first step towards enforcing that provision is to ensure that the political parties immediately after election submit audited accounts to the electoral umpire to be sure that these books are vetted and made transparent, made public. So we are also
that is
sure
if all the expenses
donated.
are recorded. If all the expenses are recorded.
No, definitely. Our expenses ordinarily ought to be recorded. And then we see, in other societies where monies are donated and captured. So we know who donated to who. And then you will know, in some cases, the political leaning of certain persons depending on what they donated to certain candidates. But here we don't see donations. In the First Republic, people make contributions to political parties. They pay their token, their dues.
It doesn't happen now.
Currently, people expect political parties to give them. And so, when all of that happens, all of these handouts that they give are not captured anywhere. Money for logistics, money for campaign rallies, money to hire crowds, money to settle vehicles, money for hotels and all of that. None is captured and none is submitted to anybody. At the end of the day, the limit is exceeded and nobody is punished for exceeding that limit. So
let me ask you this. Why do you think elections, because I get the impression that part of the reasons why elections are becoming more expensive in this country is because the voters keep demanding more and more. Whether we like it or not, it's what we see. I've covered elections in this country. Sometime in the past, you could give a voter, for instance, 2,000 naira for a vote. But we've seen elections in this country, recent elections, where votes were bought for as high as 10,000 naira. How then do we change that?
See, DG, really, the voters can't change that. You will need leadership to change all of that. And I told you, the only way you can change that, first and foremost, is to ensure that the umpire insists that everybody must play by the rules. If everybody's playing by the rules and certain persons are punished for violating the rule, definitely would be on the path to changing the mindset of the voter to expect that the politician's duty is to give them money. But when that is not enforced, the politician will amass wealth when they get into office, and then at election period, the voter will think it's opportunity for them to collect from the politician what they have amassed. So it becomes which one comes first, the chicken or the egg? It is debatable. So that's the crisis we are in now. And as we speak, even you hear voters say, I will collect their money, it is your money, but vote your conscience. So you see, at the end of the day, even the man that is giving and the man that is collecting, nobody is punished. Meanwhile, we say both the bribe giver and the bribe taker, have violated the provisions of the law. So when all of this consistently happen, DG, the election year, every election cycle, the election year to be expensive, the finances will be expensive, because and what's basically going to happen, because nobody donates or contribute to election, is that they are consistently going to dip their hand in the till to give back to you those money that ought to be used for projects. And that's why I agree with Israel, the presidential candidates, that I think Nigerians should have a rethink. The opportunity presented by this government and the poverty on the land should, create that awareness to say, you know what, let us vote for people that will change this narrative. But unfortunately, we know what I see,
we know that is hardly the case. Let me go to you, Israel. When you hear some of the things that Liberals has actually highlighted, I mean, you get a clear picture of what, for instance, you stand to face if you eventually get the ticket of your party to run on its platform now as its presidential candidate. Because the truth is that, look, demands will be made of you, and how much you spend sometimes often determines how far you can go in an election. And I wonder, when you hear things like this, don't you get discouraged?
No, I don't. I still have confidence in the intellectual capacity of Nigerians. I think sometimes we underestimate the average intelligence of even those in the village. I think gradually people are becoming directly or indirectly educated about their role in society as far as the election is concerned. I think there are 2 points here. The first one is, I would never discount the fact that election involves a lot of money. And so, but also what we're beginning to see here is my party, we are focusing on the youth, we're focusing on the professionals, we're addressing to them issues that need to be dealt with. Nobody needs to tell them about the statistics of poverty and other challenges that the country has at the moment. I think what we're looking at here, we're not asking people not to collect money from those who have, but we're asking people to vote their conscience. I'm very happy that
and I have a problem with that. When you ask people to collect money and vote their conscience, I have a problem with that, because in one breath you're asking them to be corrupt, and in another breath you're asking them not to be corrupt. It's corrupt. It's corruption. We can't deny that, to collect money from people just for them to get your vote. So isn't it better to say, look, don't collect and don't sell your conscience, rather than ask people to collect and then vote their conscience? Well, it appears we've lost yes, it appears we've lost Israel there. Let me go back to you, Liberals. It's a problem, because I find it very contradictory to say collect their money and vote your conscience.
Yes, I find it contradictory too, because that's why, I made allusion to it initially, where people say collect their money and vote your conscience. You think the politician will also be that stupid to throw money at you when you do not vote for him? If you remember, when that slogan, collect their money and vote for your conscience, and vote your conscience, came up, what the politicians did, like Eleke the Bird in Chike and the River by Chinua Achebe, simply devised a means to beat that process. They came up with what they call vote, show, and then collect your money. So you must vote for me first, and then you show me that you actually voted for me before I give you the money. If you don't vote for me, I won't give you the money. So, and then the poor hungry woman or hungry man who wants to collect that money. And that was why the money increased to as much as 5,000, 10,000, and 20,000 in some cases. And mind you, some of these fringe political parties, unfortunately to say, exist in briefcases. And you only hear of them during elections like this, where they are ready to also give their mandate to the highest bidder. We saw what happened with some candidate decamping from as many as 5 political parties in the last election. Even, you remember what also happened between Showore and some of the leaders of his political party. So, with all of this, you say collect the money and then vote your conscience in the midst of poverty, where even the political parties are for the highest bidder. And there are no volunteers. Because in the land of hunger, how do you expect somebody to volunteer?
The question, Libros, is how do we change? How do we change the perception of voters? Or how do we educate voters so that they come to understand that, look, during elections, when you collect money from these people, for these politicians, it's like an investment. Take, for instance, look, a politician is not a Father Christmas. If you ask a politician to spend, for instance, say 5 billion naira now in an election, or a politician spends 10 billion to get into office, the politician does not spend that money just because the politician wants to make that sacrifice to come and serve. Of course, the politician will get back the money in return. So how then do we convince or educate the average voter to understand that, look, when you collect money during elections, you've actually collected your share. And so when the politician gets there, he tries to recoup his investment, and you would have no right at all to complain because you've actually collected your share of the loot during elections.
Our campaign to changing the mindset can only be directed at the umpire INEC. A situation where you refuse to collect money and at the end of the day your votes are not allowed to count. It might be very frustrating in such circumstances. So the man who decides to, stand by his conscience is seen as the fool. Why those people who collected money and then the process is rigged also in their favor? But if INEC, with the processes that have been put in place, electronic transmission of results, and people know that when they refuse to collect money, their votes will actually count, we will gradually be phasing out.
But beyond INEC, don't you think there's also a role? Beyond INEC, don't you think there's also a role for civil society organizations, for even individuals like you and I, to do something, to provide some form of education for people to really understand?
I just told you, it is not lack of education that is leading to all of this. It is not lack of education. Education had been there. The television houses, there are jingles from even private individuals. And at a point, that is what even led to collect the money but vote for your conscience. And then the politicians devising another means. But what would sum it up, what would be the icing on the cake, would be that confidence in the process. If there is confidence in the ballot, that if I do not collect money, at the end of the day, my vote will count, then more people would follow that campaign that had been there. More people will subscribe to it, and more people will refuse to collect money, knowing fully well that their one vote will make a difference. But a situation where their one vote is not, you vote for a candidate, and at the end of the day, that candidate's votes are not counted. And then money is used to upturn the process. They tell you, like Fidel Castro said, in a land of lawlessness, it becomes illegal to be law-abiding. And so the law-abiding people are laughed at. And before you know it, gradually, they now begin to join them and say, well, if you can't beat them, join them. But when there is confidence in the process, and that confidence will enable people to say, look, whether I collect money or not, my one vote is protected. And the moment I cast the vote, I will see it and I can monitor it through a process. With that, we will gradually be de-emphasizing money politics.
But very quickly, because we're actually running out of time. Very quickly, you look at the campaign financing now contained in the Electoral Act. I mean, the way it was jacked up. For instance, the members of the National Assembly now jacking it up for the presidency to 5 billion. And for governorship, 1 billion and all of that, you know, jacking up this money. You think it's a good thing? I mean, don't you think this will further monetize our politics?
DG, we cannot shy away from the fact that election is not a tea party. Election takes a lot of finances to prosecute, and then we'll be deceiving ourselves by saying let's reduce the bar. And so because we don't want to be seen to be monetizing election. It needs even more than 5 billion to prosecute the presidential election. But the only thing is that we should be able to determine the source of fund and then retire that fund after the election. Transparency and accountability. How did you raise this money? Where did the funds come from? And how were they spent? What is remaining? And that money that is remaining will not go into private pocket. It goes back into the campaign account to be used subsequently. So once all of these are in the open, I can donate to a campaign, for example, and it will reflect, and I know that it's properly used. This money can be raised from anywhere. Imagine Nigerians raising money to contribute to Obama's campaign during the American election in Obama's period. You know, so people, and they did, but because of the law restricting receipt of funds from foreign donors, they couldn't send the money. So if you had transparency in processes like Nigeria election, people can actually raise money and contribute. People can volunteer their time, their services to participate in election, you know, to contribute to a candidate that they believe in, knowing fully well that at the end of the day, they will see their money worth. But when these things are not transparent, it becomes very difficult for you to want to contribute or monitor such elections. So any amount you call, because that amount is going to come from the coffers of government, you know, people will shout that it's too much because you know where it's definitely going to come
from. We just have to end it there. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Israel Davidson back. We lost him along the line, and we couldn't get him back. And then, I mean, you look at what is happening now. Even the political parties are taking a cue from the Electoral Act. I mean, the raising of the campaign financing now. They've also raised the cost of the nomination forms. So we just, the hope is that Nigerians, the Nigerian voter gets wiser and does the right thing and not sell their votes. Yeah. Because when they do that, at the end of the day, they pay the price. Libra Soshoma, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thanks a lot for your time. All right, we'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it. Use it to take action. DEJI360, dissecting the issues.